going on YouTube? It is your boy Trev. All right. Uh, I was watching. Oh no, not watching. I was listening to a space earlier today, hosted by Strathcole, and as always, a lot of information, a lot of really smart people talking about really smart things, things that are kind of over the heads of most of us. But these conversations, I guess, need to be had to explain what's going on in the chain for those who can actually understand any of it. But the point I want to make, I'm going to make a couple different points during this video. The main point I want to make is the majority of us have no idea what you're talking about, nor do we care. I've given this example before, and I'm gonna do this real quick because it's an easy way to kind of illustrate what I'm talking about. A lot of you guys, and I'm talking to you developer types, you people that are building and developing and coding, and or even those of you who understand all that, right? And know how to talk that lingo, right? It's taken you a while to get there. You didn't always know all the things that you know. And if you can possibly think back to when you didn't know a damn thing and you were just starting out and learning, if you can remember what that was like, that's how you'll relate to people like me and the rest of us typical investors in the chain, the community, right? Who the vast majority of just do not know what you're talking about. This is the illustration that I kind of made. I made a while ago. It's a pyramid, right? You see all the blocks. You see how that kind of goes. Let me turn the light up a little bit. Oh, thought I'd turn the light up. There we go. You see how that goes, a pyramid with the blocks, right? Well, I'm going to turn this upside down. And this pyramid, these blocks, represent knowledge, represent things that you've learned as far as blockchain and cryptocurrency and coding and all these things, okay? And at some point, you were here, right? But then, and you learned, you learned whatever you learned at the very beginning. Then you took that knowledge and you went on and you learned more. Then you took that knowledge, those two things that you learned, and you went on and you learned something else. And as it kept going, you kept adding to your knowledge until finally you got up here somewhere. I'm going to say up here, I'm going to reserve that for like full stack developers who pretty much know everything that there is to know about coding and blockchain and all the different languages and all that stuff. But the guys that we have working for us, they're pretty knowledgeable. I'm not going to put them up here, but they're in here, right? Those are the ones that are working on this chain and the ones that hold these spaces. And to their, I'll say this for them. To their credit, they are cognitive of the fact that they are speaking above most of us. And they'll say, well, okay, I understand that, so I'm going to try to dumb it down a little bit. I'm going to try to bring it down to where the regular investor can understand. But what happens? What you don't realize that you're doing is if you're here, you're bringing it down to here, maybe here. And for you, that's taking it way back, right? The problem is most of us are in here if we're lucky, okay? I've had the advantage of being on the community oversight committee, being in this chain or, kind of around it for, since Terra Rebels, right? And I pay particular attention. I've tried to learn a lot of things as I go, and I've had a lot of really cool people teach me a lot of stuff, right? So I understand more than I understood 2 years ago, for sure. When they mention some of these things, I have a clue. I can kind of follow some of it, but most of it is still right over my head. And you guys hold these spaces, and you're holding these spaces for yourselves. I need you to understand that. You're not holding these spaces for the community, because the community, we're down here. This is where we are. You'd have to bring it back that far to say that you're holding a space to educate the community about anything. The people who are in your validator, private rooms, your telegrams, in your private discords, with all of the developers, those people that are in those rooms and that talk to you on a daily basis, and even if they're not developers, they understand this stuff and they can converse with you. Those are the people that are in your spaces that actually understand what's going on. The rest of us are there kind of faking it, trying to understand something, trying to hear what's happening, but most of it is right over our head. Now, Strath today was talking about tax to gas, and he was talking about, and this was my fault, okay, because I was at work and half paying attention, but I did hear something about how if you're trading LUNC for USTC, you're not going to get taxed on both ends. You would pay double the tax on the LUNC side, and then you'd make your swap. I might have it backwards. I don't even know. But if you're going the other way around, if you're trading your USTC for LUNC, then you'd pay double the tax on the USTC side and not on the LUNC side. And I think that had something to do with this tax to gas and the way it kind of was set up. And he asked a question, to anyone who was in the listening audience of us regular guys who don't understand this technical stuff, if any of this stuff would be confusing to us if we saw it, because that information would be important to him. And I really couldn't answer that question. I couldn't jump in there and answer it because I wasn't real positive what they were talking about. Again, I couldn't really pay strict attention to it. But I will just give you a generic answer, a general answer, and tell you it's all confusing. It's all very confusing. The majority of this community don't give a shit about all these things that you're talking about. All we care about is whether our investment is ever going to make any money. That's it. Okay? You guys have been building and building and building and maintaining and upgrading and updating and blah, 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 blah for 2.5 years now. And I understand, being in construction, I understand the premise of needing a sound foundation. You have to have that foundation. If that means that, there's a new CosmWasm, there's a new SDK, this, that, and you want to stay with parity or, whatever, you want to stay up to date, you got to add those things. Okay, I get it, right? Build a strong foundation. But this foundation, that's all we've been doing, is building a foundation for 2.5 years. We have no idea what kind of building is actually going on that foundation. You guys have changed the plumbing, updated the electrical probably 20 times already. And we still don't even know what the building is on top of this foundation that you keep shoring up, that you keep adding to. LUNC doesn't have an identity. This chain doesn't know what it's doing, where it's going. We don't even have a goal to aim at. We don't know. But in the meantime, you just keep adding to the foundation, making it stronger and stronger and stronger. Let me take you over here for a second. Here's the reality. The reality, this is a weekly chart. And it goes back to the week ending September 5th, 2022. And it goes all the way up to this week. And here's the reality. With all this building that you've been doing, all these upgrades and all these updates and, praising yourselves for your ingenuity and how you keep this stuff going, right? And we appreciate you keeping it going. But the reality is that stuff ain't moving the needle, because if we go from the high down to where we are right now, that is one hell of a bearish slant. Even using this regression tool, which basically gives you an average. It averages everything out, and you put it at the very beginning to where, well, you put it, back to the September 5th week 2022, a couple of years ago, up to now, right? And you still see that on average, we keep moving down. We're not moving up. Investors aren't making money, guys. It's amazing that there are as many wallets as there are, and as many people holding on as are holding on. There's an awful lot of people out there who obviously did not invest more than they could afford to, and thank God, because they haven't made a dime in a couple of years. I guess maybe if you bought here and sold here, maybe you made some money if you were smart, right? But anybody who's been holding all this time, they're not making any money. The chain's going down and down and down as far as value goes. So, with all the brilliance, with all the ingenuity, with all the upgrades, with all the updates, with all the foundation building, what's missing? What's the goal here? Is the goal to just have a really strong foundation and just keep that, and maybe one day something all of a sudden will wake up and the Keebler elves built a building on top of it? Or is the goal to actually one day see the value of this thing go up, right? To whatever, and people start making money. If that's the goal, then what we need to realize, what all you guys need to realize, is that what you're doing is great and essential and needed, but it's not the whole picture. It's not the whole story. You're holding down the fort. You're holding down the foundation, but you're not building the fort. That's going to come with L2 stuff, right? With D-apps, with things that are built. If people now, IBC, right? If we go out to the cosmos, there are other things that are built on other chains within the cosmos. And I remember being back in the L1 Community Oversight Committee for the L1 development team. And I remember being educated about parity and how, even though we said we're doing this, that, and that, and that to reach parity, making sure that we were, at, SDK this, and again, Cosmosm that, and blah, 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 to make sure that we were at parity with everything else in the cosmos. It wasn't true parity because at that time we had a tax. And if you have a tax, if anything on anything that's already built on any of these other chains wanted to come here, they couldn't just come here, because they'd have to rewrite things in order to take advantage of, or not take advantage, but in order to work around the tax that we had, right? Look at it like this. I thought of this goofy analogy earlier. Let's say I wanted to be very, very innovative, and I wanted to make a new kind of mall, shopping mall, right? I wanted to make a shopping mall on water. So when you went into the shopping mall, you got in a raft, right? And you rode your way around to all the different stores. And all the stores had all of their displays and everything on these floating rafts. Everything was floating, okay? It was, the whole thing was a big water park, but it was a mall, and you'd go shopping there. But that's every store. Every store was in the water, and everything was floating, right? Stupid, but whatever. Just to get the example. In almost every mall in the United States, I don't know if Macy's is a famous or a big company elsewhere in the world. I don't know. But in the United States, almost every mall that you see has a Macy's. Macy's is considered an anchor store. It would be at one end of the mall or the other, because it would occupy one of the largest spaces. And any Macy's that you go into, in any mall that you go into anywhere in the United States, it's like 3 floors. The first floor, you'll find your women's wear, right? Your dresses, your slacks, your shoes, your purses, whatever, right? It's all the women's clothing and women's attire. Second floor, you'll find your men's attire, right? And sometimes they'll throw some other things in there because they don't have as much men's stuff as they have women's stuff. But if you want to find sporting goods, if you want to find, suits and shoes and jeans and what menswear, second floor. Third floor, a lot of times, is where they'll have housewares. Okay, that's where you'll have your pots and pans and your electronics, your toaster ovens and your grills, and your bedding and things like that, right? Usually on the third floor. It's the same exact format. Any Macy's you go into, you know where to go because it's the same thing. Well, if Macy's wanted to have a store in my water mall, they would have to change some things around. They would have to figure out how to put all of their merchandise on these floating rafts. They would have to change everything in order to come and be in my mall, right? A store like Macy's that's been extremely successful with the format that they have, right? They're not going to bother. They're going to be like, oh, that's cute, that's nice, but we're going to go and we're going to open up a store over here in this mall that is on land, because we already have a blueprint. We don't have to edit anything, right? So I know I'm off on a tangent, right? But if that illustrates for you what it would be like for one of these other businesses, one of these other projects out there in the cosmos to come and they can't just copy paste and boom, now we're on Terra Classic if there's a tax, right? So if there's a tax, you're not really at parity, okay? I kind of lost why I was even mentioning that because again, I'm off on this tangent, but I really wish I could remember exactly the point I was trying to get at. Bottom line is, this is something that they were talking about today in this space. They were talking about the tax, right? And how that all works. Well, is the tax a smart idea? Is it not a smart idea? Is the tax to gas, right? So it, reduces your gas fees or whatever. And, is that a good idea? Is it a good idea to even have a tax at all? Some people want a tax. Some people don't want a tax. These are some of the things that we have gone back and forth with for an awful long time. And if we ever want to, I think this is probably where I was going. If we ever want to actually be a part of the cosmos, we want to have parity, and we want to be able to interchange our projects with their chains and their projects on our chains or whatever, a lot of these things need to be decided. But we haven't been able to decide them. And tax is just one example, okay? This all brings me to something I've been talking about, and I've noticed a lot of other people have been talking about this lately, and that is having one distinct path for Terra Classic, for Lunk, moving in one direction. Because a lot of you smart guys will say having a tax is good because you can feed the community pool, the Oracle pool with it. You can use it for the gas. You can use it for so many things. And then on the other hand, you got the other people that are saying if we have a tax, a lot of people aren't going to want to come build here because they're going to have to change their smart contracts all around to accommodate that tax and blah 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 blah. That's an argument that's going to go on forever and ever and ever. And it's just one of the arguments that we have on this chain. L1 stuff and the things that you talk about in these spaces and building the foundation is not going to move this chain forward. It's not going to put us in an upward trajectory from where we are. It's not going to stop moving us up, right? It's going to keep us exactly where we are, building a foundation, but not really moving forward. The way we're going to move forward is we have to have a steering committee. We have to have an advisory board. We have to have a group of individuals not to take over the chain, not to centralize anything, but to guide us in one direction, to take all of the ideas, all of the different ways that we could go, right? Which any one of them might be a great way to go, and it might actually get us somewhere. The only problem is nobody can agree on one, because you've got a great one, and you've got a great one, and you've got a great one, and they don't mesh. And because everybody keeps coming up with these different ideas, we should do this, we should do that, no, we should do this, okay, we'll pass that proposal, oh no, that's not going to work, so we'll pass another proposal that kind of kills that one. Because that's what we've had and what we're going to continue to have, the only way to get out of that is to have this group that takes it all into account and says, with our expertise, with us having an intimate knowledge of Terra Classic, being here for a while, whatever, or even just having an intimate knowledge of Terra, because maybe people from this thing, maybe they don't even all necessarily come from Terra Classic. I'd like to see that, but maybe there is some expertise. Maybe there's some expertise elsewhere in the cosmos. And as long as they understood that, they were going to be on this committee. I'm sorry, it's getting late. As long as they understood they were going to be on this committee for Terra Classic, right, and to help out this chain, then I don't know that really matters. But until we have that, and they're able to take all these things and put it together and say, with everything that's out there right now, our recommendation is that this is going to be the best path. This is going to be the best idea for Terra Classic. Until we have a group that can say that, and the community backs that group up, because we chose them, we elected them, we put them in power to do just that, to keep us on a path, right? Until we have that, we're not going to get anywhere. We're going to continue on with what happened. We're going to continue on with this. It's going to keep going down, down, down. There's no reason for it to come up. I think we all want to see it come up. So maybe some of you who have opposed it because you think it's centralization, or you think it's control, or maybe you think you're not necessarily going to be able to have your way and do all the things you want to do if there's a group that says maybe the best way to go is what somebody else is suggesting and not you, right? Until you guys all get on board and understand what you keep telling us is that this is a community-run chain. Until you understand that the community is sick of the back and forth and continuously going down, and until you understand that the community wants to go in one path and wants a group that will keep us going in that path, a group of people that we trust, that we elect, until you understand that and get on board with that, you are keeping this chain from proceeding. I don't care how well you're building the foundation. I don't care how on top of all of the updates and upgrades and stuff you are, until you get along with understanding that you might not get your way about everything. But for the greater good, we need to put this committee together and start going in one direction, upward, right? Until you understand that and you get on board with that, you are holding this chain back. It's your fault. I'm looking you right in the eye, right in the camera, and telling you, you've all been trying to figure out why we're not going here, why we're not going there. It's your fault. Your why. Because you won't get on board with something like this. We have to get on board with it. It's not centralization. It's just not. And if you read the article that I wrote and the proposal that I wrote, you can't deny what I came up with is not decentralization in any way, shape, or form. It's just guidance. It's guidance. And it's taking all the good ideas that are out there and potentially putting them together as best we can so that everybody can continue to work on this chain the way you want to work on the chain, but we can work on it all focused and on the same page, on one goal. We're going to have a space about this on Sunday. This Sunday coming up. What's today? The 10th. And it's Thursday, so Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 11th, 12th, 13th. Sunday the 13th at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. You can do the calculations for whatever time that is for you. And there are a few people I've been speaking to about this, and we want to present to you this idea. We want to talk about it. We want to talk about how it can be tweaked, what's the best way to go about it. We even want to hear the objections, because if there are valid objections, we need to hear them and we need to get through them, because we need this. So hopefully you'll be there. Hopefully you'll be there not as an obstructionist, but as someone who understands the community is tired of going down, down, down. And what we've been doing has not been working. This 100% decentralization thing that we all were gung-ho about and really wanted to try, it's failed. It's failed. It has not succeeded. It has bred arguments and spinning of wheels. That's really all that's come from it. So we need to go another direction. We need to hold on to the decentralization, the validators, all that stuff. Everybody needs to do what they're doing, but we all need to do it in one direction. That's all we're saying. So come and talk to us on Sunday. And let's figure out the best way to move forward for Terra Classic and for this community. And let's make some people whole like we were supposed to at the beginning. All right. I'll talk to y'all later. Ciao.